Welcome to Homespun, where creativity finds its voice. I'm your host, Misty Doan, and today I'm joined by Heather Bailey, a designer for Figo Fabrics, who shares her journey from a childhood love of sewing to designing quilting fabrics for generations and sharing love through creativity. Hi everyone, welcome to Homespun. I am your host, Misty Doan, and today I am joined by Heather Bailey. Heather, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everyone just a little bit about you?
I'm a fabric designer for Figo Fabrics. I've been working in the industry for almost 20 years at this point. Before that, I worked for Free Spirit Fabric.
Amazing. That's so great. I have to say, you were one of my first fabric loves when we started the company. I can remember Nicey Jane coming out and being like, this is it. There's fabric that I connect with and love. So I'm glad that you are still at it and still making absolutely beautiful fabrics. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So did you start knowing that you wanted to design fabric specifically, or was it just a love of art?
I began sewing when I was about 8 years old. My family went on a road trip from Ohio to California, and my mother had brought with her a Dresden plate project where she was sewing the little fans onto blocks, but she wasn't working on it. And I was bored, so I had her teach me how. And so I sat there that whole trip, which was several days long, and made her Dresden quilt blocks for her.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
And then at some point within the next year or two, I snuck her sewing machine down to my room and made myself a pair of terry cloth flip-flops. That was my first sewing machine project.
That's like a big leap. I feel like you're like, I'm just going to make a pair of shoes.
I don't think I knew enough about sewing to know what I could do and what I couldn't do or what I should do.
But that's kind of the best part, right? You're like, when you're first learning, you're just like, well, I want to make this. Let's do it.
Yes, but I think I knew it was naughty to some degree because I made sure the door was shut.
I love that.
It involved cardboard. So anyway, that was my first sewing machine project.
Yes.
And then I began to quilt more probably around age 12.
Okay.
My first quilt was actually pretty cool looking. In fact, I should have brought it. Maybe next time I could bring the quilt.
You still have it.
Have it.
Yes, I wish you had.
You know, you can tell the date of the fabric choices.
Hey,
but it was pretty cool too.
That's part of the history, though.
It actually had a 1/2 inch dark border around every block, which involved having to sew it really well.
Yes, that's amazing.
So that was my first quilt where I did it start to finish. I had pulled that Dresden plate. Oh yeah, the Dresden plate project. Around that same time, I had realized it was still in my mother's closet in the same condition.
Oh gosh.
And I think that's actually what triggered me to quilt.
Yeah.
Was I pulled that out and started putting sashing on it. And then midway through that, made my own self a quilt, which was my first official finished quilt.
I love that.
But yeah, it all kind of came back to this road trip. So anyway, all through high school, my closest friends got quilts as presents. My boyfriends got dolls.
Oh my gosh.
Which is so silly. But so I sewed, but I never really knew anyone else who did. It was something that made me odd and unique. And then in college, I left high school early to go to pre-med because I wanted to be a doctor and I was concerned about how long it was going to take.
Yes.
And I took fashion design classes on the side as my stress relief.
Okay,
so
just for
costuming,
fun.
Pattern design, textiles. Textiles didn't end up being that fun. It was all microscopes and, we had a test once where we had to identify 80 swatches of fabric.
Oh my gosh.
And all we had was water, matches, and a microscope.
Wow. I would have never thought. And so that was the textile class.
Yeah,
so
it was really...
You're learning the actual makeup of these fibers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. And it wasn't the fun class I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, I took those on the side for fun. And anyway, I won't tell you how I ended up switching my major, but I switched. It had to do with I realized I wasn't going to be the provider in my home and that it was just going to be this crazy amount of debt. And I probably wasn't going to deploy my education in medicine. So I ended up switching my major to apparel design.
Okay.
And that felt kind of light and fluffy at the time. I figured it was a move toward not having any particular career. So I was taking my fun classes and just turning them into a major.
Well, and a connection
to graduate.
to something that you enjoyed, obviously.
It was something I enjoyed, but I think at the time I was deciding career, medicine, no career.
Okay.
Pursue what you love.
Okay.
And I wasn't seeing them as combinable.
Yeah, you didn't see how they could merge.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Wow.
So it's a little ironic looking back now that I have a full-on business in textiles.
Absolutely.
So anyway, even in the fashion design program with other people who are sewing side by side with me, I was still awed in my approach because I love to make things. I was there because I love to make things. And a lot of them were there because they loved fashion. They loved maybe more to express themselves or say something really unique with clothing.
Sure.
And I was more coming from a technical perspective. Like I wanted to know how things were done, wanted to be able to assemble things. And so outside of college, so graduated with a degree in apparel design. And outside of college, I started a children's hat business called Noggins when my first son was born. I had a rep in San Francisco that was selling to high-end boutiques, and all the hats looked like fruit and vegetables.
Oh my gosh,
so
cute.
I had one that looked like a peeled banana. And then that morphed into a women's accessory business called Trash Ties.
I remember.
Do you?
I remember Trash Ties. Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I followed your blog, so I absolutely remember that.
So I invented
fun.
this hair accessory called Trash
Yes.
Ties. It's inspired by the little twisty tie that we used to put around garbage bags before the cinch.
Yes.
The cinchability. And so it's a little twisty tie thing that you put in your hair. It looks like little ribbons.
Yes,
It's very cute.
they're cute.
And it's actually like sewing your hair. So it's like stitching your hair together or stitching it up into cute updos.
Yeah.
So my children's hat business morphed into a women's accessory business when I pursued the patent for that product. Okay, so then that business started to take off like wildfire. It was in Style Magazine, Glamour, Mademoiselle. It was in Neiman Marcus, Henry Bendel's, Bloomingdale's.
It was everywhere.
And then all the little boutiques that were big at the time. I think the Kardashians owned one of the boutiques that they were in. This is before everyone knew who they were. Anyway, they were in all the like super cool stores.
Yeah.
But that ended up catching attention of big companies that then knocked off the product. And the patent wasn't issued yet. It was patent pending, which means they legally could do that. So I decided that I would pack that business in until the patent issued. And I had this strange like 2.5-year period where I had money coming in from the hair accessory sales and no pressing business demands because I was waiting for my patent. Yeah. And I started exploring art during that brief period. And we're getting to the fabric.
I love it. No, this is amazing.
So I started exploring like painting and drawing. I wanted to illustrate a children's book, so I was learning to paint for that. And as the patent was about to issue or barely issued, I had a summer. I had just had a baby, so my second child was born in 2005, at the beginning of 2005. That following summer, her dad had created some business that cost a lot of money to set it all up. And I just thought, I need to, all these little businesses I had done weren't really ever intended to be a long-term plan for our family. They were just some little flash in the pan thing that
you were
caught
having
my
fun.
attention. And then it ended up being big. And then it was never intentional. Yeah. And that summer I had a realization that I needed to do something intentional and consistent for my family to be part of to level the boat because he was, exploring big things and new things too. And I felt like that would be the best thing for us is if I had like a
something
little side
consistent.
business.
Yeah.
A side business.
Oh, that little side business has turned into something, hasn't it?
Again, all my little side businesses.
I love that.
So I was in this frame of mind. Yeah. And I remember it was September 26th of 2005. I was on the computer, which was rare in those days. I would touch a computer once every 2 weeks. Yeah. I was on the computer and I had come across this blogger who was making dolls. And I was like, oh my gosh, like a doll friend. Yes. And she's probably younger than I was. She's probably 5 or 7 years younger than I was. But she was online making quirky, weird dolls that like nobody would buy. It was clear she was making them because
she loved them.
it.
Yeah.
And it triggered this introspective cloud of thoughts that resulted in my aha moment. I just thought, wait a minute, here's somebody somewhere else in the world. And why have I not come across people like this in my personal life?
Yeah.
Why is this so rare?
Exactly.
Because I have a degree in apparel design. I've pulled all-nighters with 20 or 30 other
makers.
Mostly women, but there were some men in the program too. Trying to put together fashion shows and stuff. We were all sewing, but we still didn't connect on they didn't quilt, they didn't make dolls, they didn't do anything that was more like homespun or I don't know, how would you explain the difference between quilting and doll making versus fashion? There's something more
it's almost an heirloom too, right? Like it's something that's going to be treasured and honored, whereas clothing, whether you make it yourself, at least in my experience, whether you make it yourself or buy it has a life cycle, right? Like those fashions come and go. Whereas handmade items, like I think of the things that my grandma made me when I was young. She made me dolls, she made me quilts, and even little dresses. And because I knew that she made them with her own hands, they're special to me. And I think that's the differentiator between maybe fashion and what quilting brings to the world.
I think you're right. I think it has something to do with like loving somebody.
Yeah.
Through sewing.
Through your creativity.
Because almost everything I ever made was for somebody else, except for that first quilt.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any evidence of all the quilts I made because they
go away.
They were an act of love.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same for me. If I'm creating for outside of my work, like I design a lot for work, but if I make at home, it's always for a purpose for someone. Like that's why I do it. And so I think that's the magical piece.
Thank you.
Yeah,
for helping me out with that.
You bet.
So yeah, I just thought I've been around other sewers, but I've never found that connection with people who understand why I sew. And I had this epiphany that I could go. My mother was a quilter. I could go to a quilt store, and if the fabrics happened to be on the dowdy side, like let's think of the most drab fabric you've seen, like something really. And it has its own appeal, but something really dusty, maybe.
Sure, and for some people that's what they love, but not everyone.
Yes, exactly. And but I was thinking about my generation, like why did I not have friends doing this? And I realized that I could go to a quilt store, and it didn't faze me what was there because I could create the pattern, the design, add the pizzazz, or whatever I needed to do to make the statement I wanted to make. But my peers didn't necessarily have those skills. They didn't know where to start. If they walked into a quilt store, they might just assume it wasn't for them, turn around and leave. Whereas I would go there and say, okay, this is a creative problem to solve. What's here that I can work with? What can I do? And so in that moment, honestly, it was within a 30-minute window, I thought, they don't sew because they don't know.
Yeah.
Right? They don't know.
They don't know. Yeah.
And it just dawned on me that because I had those skills, I had the exact skills needed to evangelize sewing to them.
Yeah, I love that.
And I just thought that there's no products for them. Yeah. They can't walk in the quilt store and know that they will love this. And because I had just discovered blogging in that same 30-minute window, I was like, I don't need the quilt stores to even understand it. I just need to get the product that the people will love, and I need to get online and show them why they should sew. And it was just, I just knew, I was like, okay, I have to do this. This is what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And I think within a day, I booked a flight to Quilt Market, which was 1 month later.
Oh my gosh.
And the goal was to go talk to the president of my favorite company with a portfolio.
Yeah.
And I'd never designed fabric. I didn't know how to do a repeat. There were no online tutorials. There were no books.
No.
There's nothing at the library. There was nothing anywhere about it.
Heather, this is amazing. I had no idea. I mean, we've talked many times. I've met you before, but I just had no idea that you really leapt in with both feet. Like,
I just knew I had to do it and that the time was now, or I'd be stuck waiting a whole year.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't know how to explain it. I've had that experience maybe twice in my life.
Yeah.
Where the hair accessory actually came in a giant flash.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that came from, but I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a monumental moment in my life that I knew I had to do it, and I knew I was right. and I booked a flight, and it wasn't like I was certain I'd have a good portfolio by then. I was certain I was going to do my best to try.
Yeah.
And that worst case scenario, maybe I'd get a handshake and 30 seconds of someone's attention.
Sure.
And best case scenario, maybe somebody would mentor me, or maybe I'd even get a contract.
Yeah.
So I went to Quilt Market fall of 2005, met with Donna Wilder, who is an amazing industry changer. She's retired now, but she was a visionary early in our community. And she was willing to take risks on things that were new. In fact, she was excited by things that were new.
Yeah, I love that.
And I met with her, and she just said, yeah, I want to work with you. Can you turn a fabric line in? I think it was due January or February.
Wow.
And, fortunately, she liked my portfolio. I did not like my portfolio.
Really?
Well, no, I was willing to show her, but I was like, oh, shoot.
You felt like it needed
turn
more.
That in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, I still felt like I had to go home and still learn how the heck to do what I had just committed to do.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask. So how did you make that leap? How did you learn the repeats, and do you design digitally, or do you design... do you draw all your designs? How did you make that leap then?
Well, that first fabric collection is called Fresh Cut.
Yes.
I tried a few different things. One of those designs was a mum print, a very three-dimensional print with mums.
Okay.
I painted that one with gouache.
Okay.
But then when I found that it was time to color it, it was very hard to figure out what I wanted to do with color's really important to fabric.
Absolutely.
And once I had the design painted, I was like, okay, how do I convey what colors I needed this to be in? I didn't want to just take a gamble on swatches, so I re-illustrated it in the computer.
Wow.
And I used a bitmap program for that one, so that was like Photoshop. Anyway, really hard to get that program to work with the printer I had at the time. So then I also had another painted design that was actually a painting of Marie Antoinette.
Oh my gosh.
And that, I didn't put it in the collection because I didn't work out the repeat, but I still have the painting.
Oh, how cool.
So I don't think anybody knows that Fresh Cut originally had a Marie Antoinette print in it.
That's really cool.
But I should probably pull that painting out
I
sometime.
Would love to see it. Yeah, that's so cool.
And part of that was she had gotten complicated, as you would imagine, having a human in the fabric. And I was still stuck with, okay, what's my process?
Right.
So I didn't know how I was going to re-illustrate her in time.
To make her fit. Well,
Anyway.
maybe you need to bring her back in a future project or a future collection.
Yeah, so when Tula came out with Marie Antoinette print, I was like, didn't she have one that was similar?
Similar.
Yeah, and I was like, Marie Antoinette.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the short version of that is I ended up preferring to work with pencil.
Okay.
And working everything out by hand because I really care about the lilt, like the sway of a line.
Sure.
The way that it flows. I want the shapes to feel like they're dancing. And now that could be, some prints might have a dancing movement, but some might have more of a rhythm.
Sure.
But if they're flowing, I care a lot about the curve. And I find that pencil has enough drag, if we want to get technical.
I love it. Let's do it.
The curves just right. So I do my drawings by hand with a pencil, and then I scan them and re-illustrate them in Adobe Illustrator, which is a vector-based program.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. I had no idea. I'm so excited to know that you came from apparel design and then made this amazing leap that's like this full circle moment from your childhood love. I just feel like what a beautiful kismet thing. It's so great. So then once you designed this first collection and sent it off, how did you know that this was the right thing for you? Did you know right away?
I knew in that first aha moment. Looking back, it's kind of funny how bold I was about it, because my first quilt market the following year with a fabric collection to promote, I did a 30-minute class called Schoolhouse, where industry people can present to store owners maybe what they have coming out, or like new products, or how to work with those new products. And I hadn't been to a schoolhouse before, so I was imagining that they really needed really valuable information, educational, so that it'd be worth their time.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you could come and just show them your new products.
Just show your fabrics.
Yeah. So I created a whole flyer. It was a multi-page flyer about the internet.
Oh, how funny.
And it had a glossary on it that was explaining like, it's funny looking back because it's so silly. There were such basic words, but I did ask them when I got there. I said, who's heard of a blog? And I think there were it was a full room of maybe 100 or 150 people, mostly store owners.
Yeah.
I think 2 people raised their hands.
Wow.
And it was confirming because it was like, okay, this is going to work, and they don't know it. Now, the really big thing to know back in 2005 is the quilt industry was a sad place. They thought they were dying.
Yeah.
And statistically, they were. There's a analysis that's done every year on like industry statistics.
Yes.
And the average age of the quilter was aging 1 year every year.
Wow.
Which means no new people.
Right.
And so it was kind of a sad place. And I was so certain, actually by that point, by the point that I showed up at market thinking nobody would know who I was, and that this was my chance to meet people, I had already started my blog, and I had all kinds of people excited to meet me, but I had already been approached at that point by maybe 12 publishers to write books.
Wow.
Because of my blog.
Right.
And so I knew that the other bloggers were getting similar opportunities. And so when I came to the quilt world, I was like, you don't understand. There's this new wave of excitement that's coming. It's coming. You haven't seen it yet. It's coming because you guys don't know what a blog is.
Yes.
You're not online, so you don't understand.
You're not connecting.
But if you get online or find those of us like me who are online and getting these opportunities and you connect with them, then all the people who are coming on the internet and getting excited about quilting are going to show up in your shop.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Well, it reminds me of early on when we started the company. Jenny tells this story often, but Al came to her and was like, Mom, I need you to film tutorials. And she's like, sure, Al, what's a tutorial? And he's like, I want to put you on YouTube. I want you to teach quilt blocks. YouTube is going to be our center for learning. And I just think that's such a, like, for him to have that insight early on, because when we started, YouTube is just 1 year older than Missouri Star. And so it was all just like prank and fail videos and funny things at the time. But now, if we want to learn anything, we search it up online and we have either blogs or YouTube or something out there. It's such a valuable resource that so many people were underestimating at that time, and I think continue to underestimate even now.
Isn't part of it, though, that YouTube didn't allow you to upload very long videos back then?
I honestly can't even remember
because
anymore.
I did a pilot video. I filmed it and actually took it to some companies that wanted to sponsor it, and I got stuck with well, first of all, I wasn't ready to run a huge film operation, but a lot of it was technical. It's like, well, where do you put this online?
Yeah. I'm not sure.
You're smart to be there right in the beginning.
Well, and in many ways, it was just luck. It was good luck and just trying things, being willing to try things. And I think obviously that's been present in your career as well, like being willing to try and put yourself out there. I think that is such a so bold of you to just be like, I'm going to do it. I feel called to do this thing. I'm going to put myself out there and try it. And now you've been at it for almost 20 years and continue to create incredible collections. Like, I love every single one that you put out. They're so beautiful. Thank you for sharing your gift with us and being willing to make that leap and say, I'm going to go present this portfolio in, what was it, a month?
Yeah, it was a month. It was either a month or it was going to be 13 months.
Right.
So if I'd had a 6-month option, I would have gone for it.
That's true, right? You're like, somewhere in the middle would have been great.
Yeah, it would have been better.
Oh, that's so funny. So if you had advice for anyone else who maybe felt or continues to feel like odd, like they don't fit in, but they are looking for that community, what would you say to them?
That's interesting because I think a lot of times when someone feels that they're not fitting in, they're waiting for someone else to be the connector. Mm-hmm. And maybe they need to get to be the leader, at least get themselves seen, be seen, be known, so that there's some opportunity for you to connect with other like-minded people.
Yeah, I think I was really shy growing up, which surprises a lot of people now because of what I do. But I found it really, really hard to connect with people in my youth. Like I often felt misunderstood or alone or just afraid to put myself out there. And I think one of the things that I've learned over time is just that when I am brave and I stand up and I put myself out there and I talk about the things that I love and I tell even little snippets of my story, people come and they do connect. And there's always people who are looking for someone to stand up and be brave enough to say, you know what, today was a bad day, or just being honest in our journey. And that's part of why I want to have these conversations, because so much of what we see is this beautiful finished process. They see the fabric, they see the quilts, they see the tutorials, and all of those things have gone through a lot of work to get to a point where they look good. And there's a lot of mess and travel that happens in between to get to that point. And I just think if we're willing to share that with people, hopefully it will inspire more people to open up and explore their creative passions and share them with the world. And so I'm just so grateful for you being so vulnerable and honest and sharing that story. I mean, it's truly inspiring. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
So is there anything you have coming up that you're super excited about that you want to share with us?
I have actually been creating more fabric than I typically put out a collection every year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
I put a lot into a collection, so it takes me many months to do it. And often there's maybe 50% more fabrics that were created that didn't end up in the final
I can
cut.
imagine, yeah.
So there's a lot of work that doesn't ever even get seen.
Mm-hmm.
I have been creating more fabric lately than I have in my career. So I have a collection coming out this month.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, right now.
Wonderful.
In fact, I think my sample yardage is arriving at my house today.
Oh,
I have to send someone over there.
Like, please put that inside.
Yeah. So that collection is called Wild Abandon. It's a richer, more deep jewel toned collection than I like light-hearted, happy colors. And it still has that, but it has a little bit more of a soulfulness to the color palette.
Oh, awesome.
And it has peacocks in it.
Oh, fun. I love that. That's so great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Can you just let everyone know where they can follow you or find out more about you if they want to keep up with what you're working on?
Yeah. I'm at, my website is heatherbailey.com.
Okay.
On Instagram, I'm at Heather Bailey, spelled as you would imagine.
Yes.
I'm on Facebook too. And then I also do fine art painting.
Awesome.
And I coach people who want to learn how to do fine art painting. So like portraiture and stuff like that.
Well, I need you to, I need that.
And I have a little itty bitty Instagram for that called Heather Bailey Art.
Okay.
But for anyone who's curious about that, I don't post there very often.
That's amazing.
It's kind of a quirky, fun little side thing. So.
Well, we're going to talk about that more for sure because I would love to learn more about that. So maybe I need you to be my coach, Heather.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you later. So bye, everyone.